If you haven't seen Avengers Endgame yet, stop watching because there's some serious spoilers about to come up. But if you have seen Avengers Endgame, enjoy the trailer.
Spider-Man Far From Home. It's an odd film, and today we're going to talk about it. Hey guys, Pigwars here, and today we're talking about Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yes, that's right. But not just that, we're also going to be talking about this film from different points of view and perspectives, and the different sides of the coin, and how we each have differing opinions on its plot, narrative, and characters.
Hey look, it's Lewis from LewisFilms. Welcome, how are you?
Hey man, thanks for having me on. I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming. So today we're going to debate Far From Home. What makes Far From Home so controversial? Disappointment versus amazement. Would you care to start?
Sure. I personally think Spider-Man Far From Home is a great example of a well-done Spider-Man film. Now, while I don't think it's on the level of its previous installment, Homecoming, I still think it stands a great film and a good Spider-Man film. One thing that stands out to me the most is the fact that this film shows us the struggles of being Spider-Man. It shows what Peter has to sacrifice because of Spider-Man. One of the main complaints about this movie is that Peter doesn't want to be Spider-Man, and that's not what Spider-Man's about. But let me ask you this, if you were only 17 years old and had your entire life ahead of you, you've been doing this for 2 years, already died once, been to a different planet, watched your father figure die twice, and then get thrown under the spotlight and expected to live up to the Avengers? Yeah, you wouldn't want to be Spider-Man, you'd want a break, which is what Far From Home is about. It's about Peter Parker wanting that break, just wanting to be a kid while he still can. But obviously circumstance and Mysterio denies him that luxury. Just like the comics, the TV shows, and every other Spider-Man adaptation there is, Peter Parker doesn't get what he wants. Peter Parker's life is affected by Spider-Man, and Far From Home showcases this perfectly.
I fully agree with that. And that scene where Peter has to choose between fighting Molten Man versus hanging out with MJ is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. But what lets me down is how they use that. He has no big consequences he has to face at the end, and the film's villain Mysterio only emphasizes that. Instead of having him play off Peter's failures, he just hits him with a train and then makes a big gray monster, which we all know sucks. If they had simply kept it smaller and had Peter deal with his inner demons more, it could have been so much better. What we got was good, but it dwindles in comparison to what we could have had. Spider-Man Far From Home is good, but it could be better.
I fully agree with the inner consequences part of your argument. The film could have squeezed out a few more interesting character moments from the few fights Peter had. However, when looking into the consequences, I think the film as a whole is about consequence. The consequence of Spider-Man is the entirety of Far From Home. When you look at the bigger picture, Far From Home deals with the consequence of Endgame. It deals with the consequence of Civil War. It deals with the consequence of Peter always having to carry the burden of responsibility on his shoulders, even when he doesn't want to, even when it becomes too much for him to handle, and even when he just wants a break. I feel like the film's bigger picture is consequence, and I think it executes it perfectly.
I can see that. It does have consequences throughout the film, but by the end, except for the post-credit scene, none of them really stick. Peter gets the girl, he gets a new suit, the villain is beaten, the bullies are taken care of, and nobody is hurt. On top of that, he gets praised for doing a good job and finding the truth behind Mysterio, when really he should have been punished for almost causing the deaths of his close ones.
While it is true that the film ends on a relatively high note, the consequences throughout the film don't need to stick around till the end if they get wrapped up and resolved. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 ended up on a high note for Peter as well. He got the girl, the city loved Spider-Man, and he defeated the villain. In Far From Home, it ended on a high note, minus the post-credit scene. He got the girl, and he defeated the villain. In fact, Far From Home ends off with more consequence than Spider-Man 2 ever did. And Spider-Man 2 is praised as one of the greatest Peter Parker stories ever told. And while I do agree with that, in my opinion, Spider-Man Far From Home does the exact same thing.
While I'm fine with it ending on a high note, it just didn't feel earned, and I feel it needs to be earned. In Far From Home, it just isn't earned. But who knows? That's just me. Anyway, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me here, it's been a pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to check out Lewis's channel in the description. Have a wonderful day, and bye!